Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're taking a look at Unkilling Forestcraft. So Unkilling Forestcraft is a zero roach forest build. No surprise there, but hey, it's great. You get an OTK in the Annihilation Manifest. You get some pretty sick board flooding in the Congruent of Killing. You get some pretty sick board control with some of these earlier cards, you know, obviously Ambush from Above, Hamlet of Unkilling, Heir of Unkilling. All of these just basically have control effects. Same with Veracity Manifest. Basically, you're controlling the board all the way up until about turn 5, turn 6, at which point you're still controlling the board, but also trying to heal and get your Annihilation down, and then you're just buying time until you can either lethal them through Congruent of Killing or Annihilation Manifest itself, which you'll see for the most part is nearly always Annihilation's Manifest. That does mean this deck is reasonably weak against something like Rune that also has its own OTK, and that's really it, honestly. Every other matchup, not too bad to play. The Rune matchup, kind of bloody brutal. And honestly, the easiest matchups are the Portalcraft matchups, surprisingly. Portalcraft is on the slow side quite a bit, which means that this deck can really pop off and get its OTK pretty easily, as long as you do keep a Fairy Beast in hand to deal with that. I'm actually almost tempted to run 3 Fairy Beast instead of 2 Crystalline Frost Ward, just because of how good Fairy Beast is at healing you. It's such a strong heal card. There's probably room for this deck to be improved, but I've been quite happy with it so far. I would say I'm a little under 50-50% win ratio with it, mostly because of some really poor fucking games that I had that were just brutal, where you either get rushed down way too early and then you don't have time to obviously build up the OTK, because it is a very late game OTK. It's like a turn 11 OTK. It's kind of brutal in that regard, which makes it a little tricky to pull off against, you know, super aggressive decks. So I don't see this deck doing very well in the super long term, but it's fun, and I recommend giving it a go if you've got the cards to do it. So we're going to get right into it and check it out. So first up, we're up against Portalcraft. I think Portalcraft is the only craft I never dropped a game with playing this deck. Portalcraft is actually the easiest deck to kill when you're playing this deck, just because of the OTK. As you'll see in this, you pretty much always want to try and get Annihilation Manifest as fast as possible. Being able to get in your hand early means you're not searching for it. Ideally, 2 of them works great because then you don't have to return the first one, but setting up Godward Staff for both as a draw engine for early game and also as a potential return for Annihilation Manifest, so that you do have one to play later in the game to then do the OTK, is something that could work pretty well. So I end up doing Godward Stuff again. Why? Because I just needed a way to play cards. But as you can see, these guys do set up amulets. It doesn't end up mattering too much. For the most part, you can almost ignore them. The amulets are slow enough that they aren't going to insta-kill you, and you're actually not worried about doing anything to their health. So you are just basically playing pure board control until you can OTK. You only have to worry about your health once you get to about turn 8, turn 9, usually against Portal. At least against Amulet Portals, in particular, the Omen Portal decks. Against more aggressive Portal decks, like Puppet or potentially even Artifact, it would be a bit different. You'd have to play pretty heavy control and be a bit more careful, but against this deck, it's really not too much trouble. It also helps that pretty much everything circumvents the Destruction effect, minus the Frost Lily. Sometimes you also do have to play cards like I just did, that just to clear out hand space, because you do not want to be overdrawing and potentially burning cards that could be really valuable to you. So they end up just setting up all of the amulets they can against me here, which are a little annoying, but not too big a deal. The more amulets they have, obviously, the faster they can do things, but obviously that's something that isn't too much of an issue. So hopefully it won't be too much of a problem here. So like you saw, we're pretty much just control. We're just taking out as many things as possible, doing whatever we can here, until we get to turn 8 when we can drop our Izudia. You do need to make sure you have an Evo for that as well, because to get the OTK spell, you do need to evolve this. I typically like to avoid using my Super Evo unless I have to, but sometimes, you know, you kind of want to. In this case, I left it up. I haven't had a single game yet where my opponent didn't kill this the turn I played it, which makes sense because it is an instant OTK the following turn if they don't kill it. since Onslaught will just hit them in the face. The only craft that can actually counter this OTK reasonably effectively is the Haven craft, because it has a barrier card to protect their own face. Like, they get to protect their leader card, like, you know. So, but that's not really that hard to circumvent. This gold is actually great. I actually really love this card. Being able to use it like this, just to ping stuff, is a lot of fun. And as you can see, Annihilation Onslaught's cost decreases every turn, at the end of every turn. So you need to wait until it's at least 2 costs so that you can play it with Azudia. And since I'm not aware of any way you could potentially make this go any faster, you really just have to wait it out until you can play it. Which honestly isn't the biggest thing in the world, because you run enough things in this deck to both control, heal, and maintain that it's not usually a big problem. Usually once I get down to about 10-12 health, that's the time to play Lion, because it will basically full heal you, or become very close to full healing you. And usually that's more than enough to actually deal with the enemy. I even spend Evos on this quite a bit on the Lion, just because it's a solid choice. I end up freeing up the space, and I do end up returning the gold. The gold is really powerful. Being able to return it and then play it again is just awesome. Since we only need to buy one more turn, as long as we survive this turn and the next turn, we do win this game. Unfortunately for us, what they're doing here is really not that impactful. They don't really have a good way to do a huge amount of burst. Like, 16 health should be more than enough to protect us from this, especially with a full board. I do make a small misplay here, though. I should have made sure I killed one of these golds by ramming it into the Odin. Fortunately, the opponent here does end up clearing them for me, so it's not a big deal. Because you do need one board space for the Azudia. I mean, they do end up clearing all of it, so it ends up not mattering at all. But that is something you got to be careful of. Don't board block yourself the turn you want to go for the Azudia. So as you're going to see, Azudia can now come down. And then we can just drop the spell, Annihilation. And that does end the game for 20 damage. Alright, next up we have Swordcraft. Swordcraft usually isn't too much trouble here either. It's more, okay, it is more of a 50-50, thinking back on it. But honestly, I think the 2 crafts I beat the most were definitely Portal and Sword. Everything else was a little bit of a mess, but those 2 decks were pretty consistently beatable. Mostly because, like, unless Sword does play super aggressive into the Forest matchup, you can pretty much control everything they do and not have to worry too much. And then all you have to do is pop a couple of really nice heals, and you really don't have too much trouble. That's really all. Like, as long as you can heal enough that it's not a problem, you'll be alright. So we are going to take advantage of using some fairies here, just to pop out cards. I think we can go for almost a full clear here, although I didn't want to risk the 50-50 on the Bug Alert, because Bug Alert is a random hit, and we do end up drawing our Azudia, which is great here. So now we have it ready to go. But we do have plenty of draw in this deck, so the odds of drawing the cards you need are fairly decent. I don't think there's a single game where I've actually, like, bricked so hard that I just couldn't play anything. So this isn't the best play in the world, but it is going to clear 3 out of 4 cards, which is more than enough to obviously mitigate our damage we're going to take here. Although they end up going for another Zirconia, which is pretty brutal, because now I do kind of need to worry about healing in the near future, while still full clearing. Fortunately though, drawing on killing here is great. That's a full board wipe. Unfortunately though, we don't have any way to get Azudia out early since we did go first, and we don't really have a great way to do too much here. And we're going to take a lot of damage very fast, so we're probably going to be forced into playing Veracity, just so that we can heal off it, which is typically what I end up using her for the most part in this match. You could definitely use her to potentially go for lethal, but I personally just use her as a heal slave, so that I don't have to worry about dying too early, since she's effectively a 5 health heal when you play her on her own. And I mean, she can clear anything with 7 health or less pretty effectively. Plus, she usually sticks, of course, with Super Evo, so that's even better. Alright, this thing did cause me some problems, though. Seeing Urias come down, or Urias, really not what I want to deal with here. An actual problem card, no matter how you look at it. Especially with my total health. It's not really a good spot to be, so I end up having to get a little janky here and just hope they don't have a lethal on me. Which, given that they aren't on Albert range lethal and they don't have any more Evo points, the odds of them lethaling me were reasonably small, but not zero. There are definitely some combinations of cards that would have caused me a problem. But as long as I can get through this one turn, I should be able to then heal myself, and it shouldn't be a big deal. Unfortunately, it does mean that the Azudia lethal is pretty much out of play at this point, and we are forced into just playing board spam as much as we kind of can. So they do end up doing some pretty good damage. Lucky for us, Fairy Beast is going to heal pretty much all of it, back up to 13. And I do end up returning that, which was a huge misplay, because obviously I didn't free up a slot first and just burned it. Honestly, the worst misplay I'd made when playing this deck was that play. And luckily for us, that Albert does come down now. I wish I had my heal, but hey, what can you do? At least I'm going to get Annihilation Manifest out now. I did forget to Evo it though, so that was also a huge misplay. This was honestly just a game full of misplays, committing the Dragooseblaze special as always, you know. Only being mildly punished for this play. So we are really low on health now, which is just really dangerous and not a spot I'd like to be in. And no matter what, I wasn't able to use Voracity because I just didn't really have a good way to play it. So I end up just committing to the gold wards and saying, hey, if you can deal with this, you win. Because, like, honestly, like, they got pretty close. If they had one more loot card, they would have beat me here. Fortunately for us, not having another loot card and all these golds is more than enough to lethal them, which they obviously did realize and ended up conceding right after. I got incredibly lucky in this match in particular. And last but not least, we have a dragon matchup. So this is actually what took me so long to get this. I think those first two games were recorded at about, 2 hours before this one. Mostly because I either run into decks that completely stomped me into the dirt, which kind of sucked, or I ran into Sword or Portal that I'd already killed like multiple times and was like, okay, well, I don't really want to include multiple matchups of the exact same deck match, So I was like, I really just have to search for a deck until I can get a win against something that isn't one of those two. Which was a little bit of a pain, but here we are. We ended up getting one. We ended up playing against this Dragoncraft deck, which we end up just going really ham on the control aspect of. Basically just making sure they can't get any damage as much as possible. Buying ourselves as much time as we kind of can. And I mean, they did a pretty alright job. It's just the fact that nearly everything with 2 health dies to every kind of ability I have. And Air Unkilling, I actually don't hate this card. I think it's a pretty fine legendary. I'm running it as a 2 of. Some people run it as a 3 of. I think it's got a similar problem to the Sword legendary where it is good but not that impactful. So I think as a 2 of is more than fine in most cases for me. I'd probably run it as a 3 of in a Roach variant because it's an ambush card with removal mechanics. But in the Unkilling build, I think I'm happy with it at 2. Who knows? That could change in the future, but... So I end up just committing to this at this point as well. Like, we have a decent chunk of damage on board. I don't have anything I can really play this turn, so I end up just dropping the 6-drop, even if there is nothing to kill. Because now we're just threatening a lot of damage, so we don't even need the Unkilling to win us the game. Especially when we see Phoenix, like, Fene coming down here really isn't a threat to us. So we basically have a really nice setup for damage here. I end up just going for the Annihilation Manifest anyway, though. Even though I probably should have went for the push on the damage on the board. But I mean, we still put him almost in lethal range of something like Odin, so I wasn't too concerned. Although I can't remember, was I running Odin in this deck? I don't even know if I was. I don't think I was. But either way, we end up doing just fine here. I mean, we have the Unkilling set up as well. That spell on its own does do 6 damage. Unfortunately, they do a lot of healing here, but they have burned through both Super Evos already. Unfortunately, this is actually really easy to deal with. We can just play Crystalline Frostward. We get the pop, and then we can even just normal Evo this, not even have to worry about using our Super Evo yet, and just take it out. And next turn, our golds do become active, so we can actually use those to just flood out the board and hold off for a turn or two. This was one of the first games where I actually got to go second and take advantage of that. Unfortunately, Ruler Cocytus is not something I really want to see, because this is a pretty brutal card to have to deal with now. Mostly because everything they can draw or summon is going to become a problem. So I end up just committing to a wide as hell board and just attacking. We only need one more turn before Annihilation Manifest is valid. Unfortunately for us, they end up having an insanely good turn. So White Frost Whisper into Silent Rider is a huge amount of damage with a full board clear. And I now have to respond and answer to this. And hope that they can't kill me, because they are very close. So I end up using a Fairy first, then we go for the gold. I couldn't think of another way to do this and heal either, so I kind of just had to commit to what I had. So I needed to clear this Silent Rider and set up potential wards. I even spent the Super Evo here just so that we could maintain some defensive properties here, so that we don't instantly die. Really the only problem would have been if they could play double Purgatory. That would have been the worst outcome, for sure. Because they don't have any, they don't really have anything else that could do any major damage. And we did end up on just 2 health remaining. But Ferocious Flame is not going to be enough, and that does mean we get the Azudia Lethal. The OTK does become active, and that does win us the game. Very, very neatly. But it was incredibly close in that endpoint because of the Cocytus play. It's just truly an insane play from the Cocytus. So overall, I am leading to this deck being more fun than consistent. It's definitely a fun deck to play. It's way better to play than Roach, in my opinion. I can't stand how Roach plays as a game mechanic, and I just cannot get into that deck. But something like this, I actually quite enjoy. I enjoy playing a much more control-orientated game with one massive OTK potential for the ending point. I think that's a lot more fun than playing something like Roach that basically all occurs from hand, which is kind of brutal to have to deal with. But hey, I had a lot of fun with this deck. I'll probably end up playing more of this Forest deck on and off. Maybe not too crazy amount, because consistency can be a bit of a problem, but I'll definitely keep an eye out for any more optimized builds or anything that kind of mixes this deck up, because I think it could be pretty interesting. So if you guys did enjoy the video, hit the like button, subscribe for more content. You'll find the deck list in the description below, and until next time, guys, I'll see you then.